my youngest is 22. So I'm like a brand new empty nester. And there's a lot of sadness that goes with that. But listen, I have to tell you something. I'm going to just speak this over you in the name of Jesus, Nick. Grandkids are 10 times better than kids. I'm telling you.
Welcome to the Digital Ministry Podcast. I'm your host, Nick Runyon. The Digital Ministry Podcast is brought to you by Media Impact International, where I get to talk to some of my longtime friends about what they're doing in digital ministry and what they're seeing working, what's not working, what we're exploring, where do we go in 2024, all of those things. And today, we have the pleasure of chatting with Stephen Earp. Stephen, thanks for being here.
Man, it's a great honor. It's really good to see you too.
Good to see you.
Seeing you face to face. Yeah. Thanks for inviting me.
It's been a while. Yeah. No, it's good to be with you again. We hung out, I think in Dallas at a little round table was the last time. And I remember saying then, it's like, oh, we got to get together more.
I know. That's the story of my life. We got to get together.
I know.
Let's do it. And yeah.
But isn't it nice to have, don't you think it's, especially in this space, I think it's great to have like connections and really friendships that span the globe, and we can catch right back up. Before I hit record, we sat here chatting for probably 20 minutes.
Yeah. So. I know. I like, the concept of fellowship or that koinonia connection that believers have is, I think of it like, even when you're not together for a good bit of time, but then when you meet up and you pick right up where you left off kind of thing. Anyway, I think that's a great fellowship of believers. And plus, just I've had great respect for the work that you have done in digital spaces for so long. And of course, David too. David Benware, if your viewers don't know who David Benware is, you should definitely know. But by the way, I don't know, I didn't mean to hijack your introduction, but I need to share with you how I got involved in this space was actually because of David. Did you know that?
No. So David Benware is the founder of Media Impact International, and you and I have done, some projects, and MII is great because they kind of take skills and learning and, try to distribute that, disseminate it to people that are working in ministry around. So that's little context there. But no, tell us how you got into this with David.
So I'll try to give you the short version of my early story. I was largely involved in church planting and disciple making here in the U.S. and I'd consulted with some denominations and helped start a church planting network. And my wife, I also simultaneously I'd had businesses and I did a lot of marketing stuff. I remember doing like pay-per-click stuff before Google was around, and that kind of stuff.
Double click.
Yeah, we did pay-per-click on like Ask Jeeves. I don't know if that was stuff like that, but like early 2000s. And so, but I didn't use it much in mission or ministry. It was a business thing for me. And then my wife got super sick around 2007. Her health declined. We had 5 kids, and I was pastoring a church and trying to run businesses and do stuff like that at the same time. And around 2017, several things sort of intersected for me. One was someone gave me the book Miraculous Movements, which is, it basically is a book that talks about how over the last 25 or 30 years, there have been more Muslims come to faith in Jesus than in like the last 1400 years combined. And I was given that book by an Afghan brother that, I was involved in disciple making. And so that was one thing. Another thing that happened that year was my wife's health took a nosedive and she ended up needing 24/7 care. She was basically bedbound. And the third thing was I found myself in the 4 walls of my house. I'm like an over-the-top extrovert, no one to talk to. And evangelism is like one of my primary gifts. And then I have the disease of entrepreneurialism and starting new things. And I thought, what am I going to do? I'm here in my home. And how do if at the time, I think I may have been, I don't know, I'd have to do the math, but I was probably 41 or 42 at the time. And I was like, if this is halftime of the soccer match, like I want to be on the whole game. I don't want to be on the sidelines. So how can I be involved in disciple making and whatnot? So I turned to Facebook, and we had produced a film. I was involved in media for a good while. We produced a movie called Where Was God? And it had a limited theatrical release, and then went to Netflix. And so we had...
That's about the tornado in Moore, Oklahoma. Is that right?
Yeah. You can watch it free at wherewasgod.com if you want.
Nice.
And there's a little plug for you. It's still there. So we had a bit of a Facebook following from that, and maybe 16,000 followers. We didn't really promote it much or do much with it. But I thought, well, I'm learning about how to share the gospel with these different people groups, and I have this Facebook page. So I just started playing with it. I started testing different posting rhythms, different types of engagement and content. We had some stuff grow and grow and grow. And initially it was all organic. And it grew and grew and grew. Through a series of connections, someone introduced me to David Benware. And we had, by that time, probably a couple of million followers on various Facebook pages and Instagram accounts. And he was talking to me about what they do. And he said, I really want to come. And he came to my home and met my wife. So he came twice. He came to my home, met my wife. She was mostly bedbound. At one point, he came and visited her in the hospital. I'm talking like hopped on a plane to come see her. And so around that time, he started talking to me about doing some coaching with teams overseas and things like that. And that was kind of like the beginning of me trying to make an impact kind of in a more broad base. So I wouldn't be doing this if it wasn't for David. And that was the very beginning of it. So David Benware, if you're watching this, I love you, man. You're a hero in the faith for me, in the digital space especially. So
yeah, I think there's a lot of people that would share that story and experience.
Yeah, I feel like he literally came and got me. It was like I couldn't leave my house, and then the first time he came, actually, he was scheduled to be here, and then my wife went to the hospital, and so he actually came to the hospital, and we met and talked ministry and stuff down in the eating terrible hospital food together. So
yeah, so that's so good. It's just a fresh reminder that relationships matter. It's that kind of stuff that leaves a lasting mark. And I really think that, relationships are what we're trying to build and create, and conversations, and just engage people, digitally. Tell me, before we get into some of your experience with digital ministry, and this probably overlaps, but, millions of followers on Instagram pages and, kind of fast growth with some of those communities. Like what's all that look like now? What were some of those properties maybe?
Yeah.
Or are they? Maybe they're still going. I don't know.
Yeah. So some of them are. So a lot of the fast growth we had was between 2017 and 2019. Mm-hmm. Our largest Facebook page is called Finding God Online. And Finding God Online is also the name of our ministry. So findinggodonline.com. But so you can see a Facebook page there, Finding God Online. On Instagram, we have several large accounts. Probably the largest is called Insta Scripture. And so Insta Scripture is but we have several pretty good sized Instagram accounts. So we got to where we ended up a few years ago, they're probably somewhere between 6 million and 7 million followers in different groups we have. And
yeah,
but a lot of that grew up until about 2000. And then we're maintaining them, but like most of the work I do now is in training, equipping, and helping missions groups run ads and various things like that, use media to reach people for Jesus with different people groups. So
you said 2000, but did you mean 2020?
Yes, I did mean 2020.
Yeah. Well, and the reason I ask is because, and given your background with some of the film stuff,
yeah,
I was having this conversation the other day with somebody, like since 2020, everything shifted to video so quickly.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I was kind of making an assumption even when I asked you the question about the Facebook property, because, Facebook has shifted completely to Reels. I use Facebook for two things. I use Marketplace. What is this? I've got balloons like popping up.
I don't know, but that was the coolest thing ever. You're having a party up in here.
This is what happens when you use tools and you don't know how the settings work.
That's awesome. What was it? Do you know?
What? I don't know. I did something with my hands in it.
Do it again.
I noticed this. It does like thumbs up. Anyway, people that are just listening are like, you lost me here.
Yeah.
If you're just
a bunch of balloons just went up the screen on the video, so you might need to find us on video and check it out.
That's right. If you overlaid engagement, social media engagement with video production from 2020 to 2023, there's a very, very strong correlation. I mean, everything is consumed on video. And I'm just curious with your film background and some of your multimedia stuff, like what's your view of that?
I love it. I love it, and a lot of creatives in the film industry do not love it. But I love it as more of the producer, because I was more in the producer space. So that's kind of more on the business end of things and less the creative side. So what I love about video-based content, and especially Reels and YouTube Shorts, and the huge opportunity, by the way, if anyone wants to do ministry online, YouTube Shorts is some of the fastest growing stuff that we're seeing right now.
I agree.
Of course, TikTok, but YouTube Shorts is underutilized right now. And it works well for your long form content and short form.
And optimized for search, being a Google company. It's so strong.
It's a home run, yeah. I love it. What I love about it is you can do well with Reels using creativity and tools you have in your hand. You don't have to have tons of resources. And so it kind of it levels out the playing field in a lot of cases. So when you have a 15-year-old with an iPhone that ends up with a TikTok account with millions of followers, I mean, like, it's almost like we've democratized media. So sometimes I laugh when I see some traditional media outlets and they don't have that much engagement, they don't have that many followers, and they're the professionals. And then you've got like teenagers who are, killing it. And it's like the world is voting by what they want to see based on what they watch and what they like and things like that. So I love it.
Yeah.
Are you?
Everything's shifted. I don't think people realize it yet. We were traveling over the holidays a little bit, and we don't have cable TV at my house. We don't, we only watch like streaming stuff. And I turned on the TV in the hotel room. I was trying to just like catch the news and like figure out what's going on. It was a terrible experience. I haven't watched TV news in forever, and I couldn't take it. It was awful.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. So
sometimes my wife and I will, it's like there are some things we like to stream, but it's like, well, we'll just get frustrated with it, with even the streaming stuff. And, if you're streaming, you can avoid the commercials and all of that, cable TV stuff. Sure. But a lot of times it's like, this is just not engaging. Let's just watch Facebook Reels, or let's just watch TikTok. We'll just, and her TikTok and mine for view. I don't post a lot on TikTok. I just use it for entertainment. Legitimately, I'm a 49-year-old guy that gets a lot of his entertainment from TikTok videos. So like,
yeah.
And
you're not alone.
Yeah, we're like, we'll switch on and off, because hers is not what I like, and mine is mostly not what she likes, but there's some overlap. So the algorithms are so smart. It's like they, and that's a big change since 2000. TikTok changed everything for, and I don't know, I mean, probably a lot of your viewers will know this, but like, it's probably worth saying that the way TikTok changed the game of content is incredible, because it's no longer about what you follow or even what you engage with. If you watch the video, they're going to serve more videos like that to you. And so it's much more based on the content you actually consume and the content you want to consume, and much less based on what you say you want to consume. So
Right.
I love it personally, and I think it's a huge opportunity.
I'm with you on that. I think that it's also, from a faith-based perspective, it's a little, what's the word? There's some accountability there. Like I'll be scrolling through and it's just like, man, all my stuff is like fishing or off-road vehicles. It's like during hunting season, it's a bunch of, stalking elk and things like that. And it's like, these algorithms are picking up where I spend my time and my focus and my energy and my free time,
Yeah.
and it always makes me kind of wonder, how am I stewarding that? Was it good or bad? It's a nice feedback loop. Funny thing though, we've watched a ton of YouTube and, some streaming services in our house, but we were watching a program the other night and we kept getting these ads for, it was on ad-supported Prime is what it was, because I'm cheap, so, but these medical companies are running a bunch of ads, and it was a lot of like IBS and gut health and all this stuff. And my 10-year-old daughter turns to me and she says, Dad, does somebody in our family have gut problems? Are they tracking you? Why are we getting all these ads? And it was just so funny to see my 10-year-old realize, oh, this is the world that we live in, is that you are tailor-made advertising and messaging is not accidental.
Yeah. That was good.
So
yeah,
I
I don't like ads I get on Facebook anymore. There's so many of them are related to old man stuff, it's like,
oh yeah. I mean, mine are, lose your belly fat and grow your hair back. So solid middle-aged targeting, right?
Yeah. Same. Different drugs and
right. So let's talk a little bit about, what you're seeing. First, tell our listeners kind of how you're involved in digital ministry today, kind of what you're doing. You're doing some really creative stuff and effective things, connecting people to, local communities, local fellowships, churches in some cases. Talk a little bit about that and what's working well.
Yeah, thanks. So of the work that I do and what I spend my time on, we do some degree of general training in using reels and social media marketing and things like that, just in a broad basis. That's probably only about 10% of what we do. Most of what we do is we work in this space where there are groups of, a lot of times it's locals. So most of my work is among unreached people groups. And this is where there are less than 1% of the population that knows Jesus. And so most of the work we do, we will identify groups of people. Sometimes it's underground churches, or sometimes it's above ground, or sometimes it's some kind of movement that's making disciples in some way, whatever they may call it. But they're already active, reaching their people. And a lot of the work we do is helping groups like that add a media component so they can identify spiritual seekers, they can identify more spiritual seekers. So what we found is something like between 2 and 3% of people in any given population are open to religious change. And that might be an overstatement to say that's across the board. That's just a generally speaking, there's a certain percentage of the population that's open to spiritual change. And so what we find is by using, big data, and this is what MII does, using big data, borrowing from Facebook's algorithms, if you can identify who those people are, then you don't have to spend as much time. It's almost like they can self-identify by saying, I want to know more about Jesus. I have questions about this. And so we help groups like that are maybe traditional missions organizations on the ground, the field teams, add a media component so they can identify additional people to work with. So that's most of what I do. And what I'm seeing working, there are pieces of it, and there are pieces of this that you might be able to speak to. I'll just share my actual real pain points, and I think you might actually have some solutions. But
we love real pain points here on the Digital Ministry Podcast.
So the opportunities in the missions world in any developing country, well, let me back up. Biggest opportunities anywhere is reel-based content. YouTube Shorts, TikTok, Facebook Reels, Instagram. That's where the opportunity is.
Yeah.
Whether you're running paid ads or organic, whatever it is, there's increasing opportunity in the missions world for using this content organically, because if people start engaging with your content, it will, even if they're opposing it, the algorithms will show it to more people like them. So in other words, let me give you an example. I work with there are two really large TikTokers that I work with on a regular basis. One of them is based in Lebanon. His TikTok account's in Arabic. He came to faith by watching YouTube videos a number of years ago, and he spoke English, and so all the content he was consuming was in English. And of course, there's a lot of content available in English. He's asking all these spiritual questions, and he was somewhat of a celebrity in Lebanon at the time, and so when he came to faith, it was kind of a big deal. And then he started producing content for YouTube and TikTok. Some of his TikToks went viral, but a lot of his content has to do with he's very kind, but he'll just ask a question like, "Hey, dear Muslim friends, can you help me understand this about the Quran?" And they'll just ask a question, and then in the comments, people will start giving him their answers. And it's like, the algorithms are picking up that these committed, Muslims are really interested in his content. And so then his content gets showed to more of their friends. And so and then he's able to sort of address some of those questions in more long form content like YouTube videos or something like that. So that's an example. I think in the missions world, that those are TikTok, I think, is not used to the extent that it should be. And part of that is because there are some challenges doing follow-up, but biggest opportunity for organic growth, I think, is like real type content like that. We have another example in Afghanistan of a brother who decided, he had come to faith when he was in his teens. His whole family came to faith, and since then they've been involved in mission, in ministry, sharing Jesus with other Afghans. And of course, things have gotten really hard in Afghanistan. But maybe 2 years ago, he approached a colleague and I and said, "Hey, would you pray with me? I'm praying about going public with my face and name. And if I do that, I'm not going to be able to go back home." And so he did, and he went and he started producing content on TikTok. And within about 6 months, he was getting millions and millions of views every month on TikTok.
Wow.
And he'll go even live. He'll go live on TikTok and have 400 or 500 people watching. And he's, and he's doing these lives in Dari, his native language, and just talking about Jesus. And so there's a huge opportunity there. Question I have though for you, a lot of the space I've been in is like you want to be able to have the content, and then you want to be able to drive people to some sort of response mechanism. Like, how can you follow up? You have millions of views, and then with a lot of the work that that we've done even together, it's like here's this content, and now it's connected through an API to some omni-channel where they can do responses, and then maybe it's connected to a CRM at the back end, and you can do ongoing tracking and follow-up.
Right.
But what are solutions? Do you know solutions for TikTok like that? I mean, like for TikTok or even YouTube Shorts, where you've got, you're having hundreds and hundreds of responses, and people are legitimately asking questions about Jesus, but we're not able to systematize it the way that we have been, like with Facebook ads and things like that.
This is a problem that a lot of ministries are dealing with right now. And the reality is there's not a lot of great tools that are out there. In the marketplace, people think about it from a brand perspective, developers and, these software companies think about it from a brand perspective. Like, how do I manage my brand? How can Delta Airlines respond to, thousands of people on Twitter every day that tag them and mention them, and they want to be a part of the conversation, monitor it. It's not exactly what ministries are doing. Like, ministries are more on the, like, let's build a trusted relationship that can exist over time, and we can have a conversation and help just kind of process through questions and, get connected to, resources and Christian community. And then, so on the ministry side, the tools that exist are really, frankly, they're just not keeping pace. I mean, this stuff is changing so quickly that I think that there's a real gap there between the needs of some of these ministries, or like somebody on TikTok, like your friend that you just mentioned, and the response that they're getting, and then the ability to just engage and manage that response, and then really doing it from a team structure. So there are some tools out there that allow comments and messages to come in, and then you can distribute those through your teams, but they're limited. There's only certain channels that they work with. Right. And TikTok's one of those that's come on really strong, and nobody's really developed toward it yet. I'm hesitant to give any like recommendations for a single platform. I have been looking at kind of group management for TikTok comments. So there's some, if you Google that, there's some tools out there. But now, if I've got a team that's trying to do follow up, like at my church or, in my ministry, they've got to navigate like multiple tools to manage the social media platforms. And it just raises a lot of questions for me. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. It's like, what are you really trying to do? Like, are you trying to grow the reach? The examples that you've listed are ones where you've got kind of reach, there's something that's resonating, and now we've got all these people that we need to respond to. That's like a really kind of natural, organic growth, a good problem to have. Right. There's other people that are like, okay, we've got this message. How do we go build a big audience and try to reach as many people as possible? And there's just part of me that really has come to think that I don't think it's wrong. I don't want to say that it's like good or bad, right or wrong, but it doesn't yield the same kind of quality of engagement and conversation with what you're talking about. There's a little bit of like a bottom-up approach that I think you've taken that is really interesting to me. So when you've got, somebody in a location that has, an effective ministry, they've got trusted relationships within their community, they're really being kind of the salt and light in the world, they're serving. Like, how do you bring people to them rather than go reach a bunch of people and now we got to figure out what to do with them? You have any thoughts or comments on that?
Yeah. I haven't thought of it in the way that you've asked, like the bottom up. I mean, of course it's self-evident when you mention it like that, but I think so. Philosophically, as a believer, I think that our end goal is to make disciples, whatever that looks like. So the local church or whatever it's. I mean, if you're in a local church here in the U.S., we all know that the goal is not just to get people sitting in the seats. We know the goal is for them to be following Jesus and sharing it with others and things. But sometimes we can sort of unintentionally get to that lowest thing of like, well, if we can just get them here. But I think that it's about giving them something of value and finding the people that are actually looking for it. So in other words, it's a combination of giving them value that they actually are looking for and meeting them where they are. Okay. And whether that's digitally or face to face. So I'll give you a couple of examples. Here in the US, maybe 6 or 7 years ago, when we were running ads here in the US with churches, we would see lots of results from just promoting the church and running ads and inviting people to church.
Results like what?
Like
What's that mean?
Results, well, digital results like clicks and likes and shares, but also people actually showing up at church. Like,
Okay.
especially in a lot of places. I mean, you promote some event, you're going to have some Easter egg helicopter drop, or you're going to have you're going to have whatever attractional thing you have.
Right.
But also, to a lesser extent, also, even just for programming, whatever it is you promote. So we saw pretty good results with running ads in the U.S. with churches, just driving people to the church, and then in the church, whatever their process is at that point. But what I'm experiencing now with my local church and with other churches in the U.S. is more like the most effective ads we see running now are like prayer-based ads. So, so like and I started doing this when I was still pastoring, just very low, not a lot of production. The pastor or some talking head of the church records a 30-second video. Hey, my name is Stephen Earp. I pastor this church in this community. We have a group of people we love to pray for people. If you have needs, please let us know what your needs are. I would love to pray for you. We're not asking for anything. I just want to pray for you. And so running ads like that, and then when they message you, when you respond, use high touch. So I think when everything goes, like, high tech is most helpful when there's not a lot of tech available. But when there's a lot of tech available, I think you need to have high touch to make an impact. So
that's really good.
Yeah. I mean, so when everybody's going high tech, then you go high touch, So like when we planted the church the last church we were involved in planting, I had volunteers handwrite 3,000 letters to people, hand address, handwrite, first class stamp, and mail them. Because mail still works. If anyone sends you an actual handwritten note, what are the chances of you opening it? 100%. Like,
sure.
Yeah. Not if it looks like it's handwritten. Like, you're smart enough to know this is a real estate investor. But if it's actually handwritten. So like, then what we did is we would have people, and I did all that I could unless I was out of town. I would get their prayer requests and I would send them a video prayer. I would pray right then and record it on a video. Dear Lord, thanks for Mark sharing about his job loss. I just want to pray for him. We know that you're the provider, and we, and so I would do that. And I prayed for, I don't know, 50 or 60 people a day like that. And then I had other people at the church doing that. And when people would message us, they were like, I've never had anybody do that before. That was crazy. Well, that's the same thing that we see among unreached people groups in these hard places where it's like you come in with kindness, you're bringing peace. Luke chapter 10 talks about a person of peace, but you go into a village that's unreached and you speak peace to them. And I think that idea of peace, or that shalom, like you're bringing something that's not expecting a return. You're actually bringing value. I'm coming here to see if I can meet your need in some way. Early in my ministry, when I first started, I remember an older minister that's with Jesus now, and he told me, he said, Stephen, if you will always preach for broken people, then you'll always have an audience. And I think that's really, really true on social media and really true with churches. So like, that's what we're seeing. We see that here locally and we see that globally. If you start with where their pain points are. So that, anyway, that's kind of so here we use like prayer ads a lot. There, in other places, sometimes we will use prayer ads, sometimes not, because the idea of prayer is like someone praying for you. That's a weird concept, but right. So we try to approach it from that perspective. And I know there are different ways of thinking about targeting. Like, we talk about persona a lot, the model of persona-based targeting, like, and a persona is, how old are they? What's their demographic? What magazines do they read? The psychographics, the demographics of your audience. But what I would challenge marketers to think about as either part of that, I don't think it's a different model, but like, I think thinking about pain points and thinking about God needs is maybe a stronger targeting mechanism than persona. In other words, what are the needs the people in this community have that can only be met by a God who loves them? It's the need of loneliness or relationship or healing or something. And I know with the work that you've done at CV, there's a lot of that. You're targeting based on needs-based targeting. And so that can overlap with the concept of persona, but sometimes we get so much into the what does a 25-year-old think and want that we're not thinking about what kind of loneliness is this community experiencing or something like that. So maybe that was a long answer. What do you think? But I think start with the pain points and offering them peace, giving them something they need, and you'll always have people respond.
I would agree. I mean, what I'm thinking about as I'm listening to you is whether it's in the U.S. or abroad, people have some idea of Christians and Christian church.
Mm-mm.
Might be right. Usually it's wrong, and just here in the States, it's a lot of like skepticism. Well, what do you want from me? Well, I got to go, to this thing. Like I got to give up my Sunday, and it's a weird experience. Like people sing, like if you're not from a church background, it doesn't make a ton of sense. There's this reputation that the church wants my money. They're going to be, asking for something. They're going to be asking for my money. They're going to be asking for my time. They're going to be asking for my influence, like all this stuff. But when you start to talk to a lot of pastors, I would say Christians that are intentional with their life and their time, like you, there's this kind of heartbeat that's often not, I wish were more visible, that this faith and this Jesus has changed my life in a way that I can't ignore. I was interrupted. I have to reconcile this. It's something that I have to address. And I found peace. I found hope. I found thankfulness and gratefulness. I want to give that, I want others to experience that. And the things that I hear you talking about just now are meeting people with that aspect of faith first, so I think it's high touch is incredibly surprising to everybody in every industry now, because everything's become so mechanized and people don't care. People just don't care. I heard somebody the other day talk about, I've got 5 kids as well. A bunch of them are teenagers right now.
Wow.
And they were saying nobody listens to them. Nobody listens. They've grown up in a digital world where the expectation is that you talk, you present, you are excellent, you can't fail. You have to curate this, image or whatever. And nobody listens. And so one of the greatest gifts and the greatest, gift of love is that you could just provide attention. And it's like high tech, high touch. I mean, that's what you said. That's it. So some of the, the prayer requests, if you can meet your community and not even an audience, because it's not like, I'm kind of thinking a lot about the difference between building community and building audience. One's about them and one's about me.
Right.
Like I want it to be about them. I want to engage my community. I want to know when people are hurting, when there's a need, and then what can I do? How can I meet that for you? And maybe it begins with just a simple question, listening to the response, engaging. I'm sorry to say, I feel like it's in short supply today. So I think some of the things that you're talking about they're definitely resonating with me. And I'm sure that others listening are kind of thinking about what opportunities they might have in their own local community.
I remember at one point when I first met you, it was at a gathering of some faith-based influencers, Christian influencers. I forget the location of it, but and at the time,
I'd have been was it at Facebook headquarters? I think we had a meeting at Facebook HQ. It doesn't matter. Anyway.
Yeah. I don't remember, but I remember some of the guys I was working with at the time that were growing these huge accounts organically. And what all of them had in common was they all would respond to as many messages as they could themselves personally. And like respond to comments personally. And even if they had hundreds of thousands of followers and they were actual like influencers. And even though you can never respond to any of them, the one you respond to is going to impact him or her. And
right.
I had a similar thing with one of our Instagram accounts when Instagram first came out with stories, and they came out with a feature where they would ask you to allow you to ask questions. And now that's like a common thing we all have, where should I visit in this town or whatever. And I would do Bible Q&A that way and try to give 15-second answers, which is a real challenge, by the way.
That's pretty quick.
But people were...
you can't parse the Greek in 15
No. Well, that's not much of a Greek parser anyway, so I barely could get along with the English. But but when people would respond, I mean, it's like, wow, you actually responded. I mean, they're shocked. And so for most ministries and most people, most churches, it's like if you just get one or two people that actually love people and care and will just respond to messages, like, I mean, you'll make an impact. You'll draw people to Jesus, and you'll help bring about the kingdom. I think the kingdom of God always moves towards brokenness. And so the thing about it, in 2020, my wife went to be with Jesus, and she was sick for a long time. And I remember in that process of like Psalm 34:18 that talks about God is near to the brokenhearted and he rescues those whose spirits are crushed. I developed this conviction that said, mission is about drawing near to the Lord, and then out of that overflow, just being sent out by him. But it's not a transaction. It's like a filling. It's like I'm so close to him that my heart and his heart beat together, and I just have to go let the other guy know that there's a great God that loves him. And this concept that if God is near to the brokenhearted, and I want to be near to God, then the way for that to happen is I need to be near to the brokenhearted, because that's where I'm going to find him. That's where he's working. And we see that here, and we see that in unreached people groups. It's brokenness that draws people.
Do you think that hearts have to be broken as part of that process to come near to God? Like ours?
I'm not sure. I would say that mine has.
I would share that experience.
Yeah. I mean,
different experiences, but yeah.
The old song.
You've gone through something that's difficult. I mean, incredibly difficult. You wouldn't wish on anybody, but the outcome is that, you've got a different relationship with the Lord now.
Yeah. Well, I think, losing somebody really close to you changes you, at the deep level. I didn't mean to go down that road with you, so sorry for your audience if you're thinking, whoa, it just went to a dark place. But
and we can edit this out or, we can talk about it later.
Uh,
None of this is live. So
no, I don't I don't mind at all. I think what brokenness has done for me is it has allowed me to see there are two ways of looking at brokenness, two ways that I look at brokenness, and also like spiritual movement and also marketing, and it all flows together for me. And that is, there's the macro level of like, what does it look like from up here? Then there's the micro level of what does it feel like to look across the table and weep with someone who is desperate.
Yeah.
And so what we've seen, like we've done a lot of work in Afghanistan for probably, I don't know, 5 or 6 years at least. And when the Taliban came in and took over Afghanistan, our responses on our digital efforts skyrocketed. I mean, people experiencing the darkest things, it's like pain and suffering cultivates the spiritual soil in their hearts, and they start looking for something different. And it's almost like, I attended a church that does the old hymns, and I haven't been in that environment in a little while. And Sunday we sang Rock of Ages, cleft for me. And one of the phrases in the song says, nothing in my hands I bring, simply to thy cross I cling. And there's something about being broken and being utterly spiritually bankrupt when we say, I have nothing to offer him, but here I am if he wants me. And I think that's where we see, and I think that's why I'm drawn to needs-based marketing. Because in Afghanistan, when pain and suffering increases, the response rate online increases. And in Somalia, and in other hard places where there's lots of suffering, Yemen, you can see it in real time as more people respond, as they get desperate, calling out for something, and they don't know what it is they're calling out for. I think what they're really calling out for is they're calling out for the kingdom of God, that can come to bear on their heart and their society and their town and their people. And that kind of peace that can only come from Jesus, the King of the kingdom. So
that's what ministry really is, isn't it?
Yeah, I think
ministering too.
That's why I love social media so much. To bring hope at scale. Like, you're not selling some widget or trying to just run people through a sales funnel. Like you have actual hope of life and afterlife and purpose for today, and we can be involved here and connect with people on our block or around the world. And it's incredible. So, man, I love it so much, really.
Yeah, I can tell. Oh man, that's incredible. We've covered a lot. So I think I hear you saying brokenness brings us closer to the Lord. The Lord comes near to those that are broken. Engaging in that, asking to engage, inviting people to into that hard conversation, maybe when they're in a place of brokenness. That's where digital ministry is really having an impact today. And there's the channels, the algorithms, the ads, the tools, those are just means to an end.
Right.
And it's easy to forget that. I think we get lost in the clutter sometimes. It's really good. Really good. What are you looking forward to most this year?
Man, I'm looking forward to, so I've got a number of international trips planned, and we have some really incredible fruit happening in certain parts of the world. So by the end of the week, I'll be in Ethiopia. I'm excited about that.
Nice.
I'll be in be in South Africa. So I'll spend a lot of time in Africa this year, different countries. And I'm also I'm enjoying, like, I know I mentioned some sad things earlier, but like I just got married maybe just over a year ago. So I'm in the new space there. So we're enjoying our lives merging together and getting into a rhythm. And so I'm loving life right now. This is a really great time for me. So seeing spiritual fruit, getting increasingly focused, enjoying. I mean, you have 5 kids. How old is your oldest?
Just turned 18.
Yeah. So my oldest is 32. I know 30. She's 31. I was a dad when I turned 17. So.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I don't recommend that.
I don't think I knew that. Yeah. We've never talked about that.
Yeah. My wife and I got married at 17. My late wife. Wow. Yeah. We had a baby when we were 17. And so I have 5 kids, and my youngest is 22. So I'm like a brand new empty nester. And there's a lot of sadness that goes with that. But listen, I have to tell you something. I'm going to just speak this over you in the name of Jesus, Nick. Grandkids are 10 times better than kids. I'm telling you. Like, you are in the trenches right now, brother. But one day, these little Runyon munchkins are going to come along, and they will steal your heart. And it will be like you died and went to heaven. And so I love them so much. So that's awesome. And relationship with the grown kids is awesome too. So I'm in a really good season right now. I feel like went through some hard seasons, but man, I'm looking forward to this year. Every day I look forward to. So yeah, thanks for
That's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. That makes me really excited. You know, people tell you things like, oh, kids grow up so fast, or people drop these wisdom nuggets on you throughout your whole life.
Bumper sticker.
I'm at the point where I'm starting to believe them, because it's like, oh man, 18 years old. How did that happen? Like, I looked at my wife the other day. I was like, where did it go? You know? And so
yeah,
I'll believe you on the grandkid thing.
Oh my gosh. They're so amazing. The thing about people say that this is one of the bumper stickers people have always told me, well, you can just spoil them and send them home. Well, I'm not much of a spoiler. I don't know. I mean, like, I like to give them candy and stuff. That's not spoiling. Everybody should eat candy. But what's cool about grandkids is, like, you can help disciple them. You can pray for them. You can love on them, but you're not responsible for them. So if your 3-year-old is still pooping his pants, not my problem. Like, if your 5-year-old is struggling pronouncing her R's, she'll get it by the time she's 8. Don't worry. It's like, so it's really cool, man. I love it so much. No pressure. There's no pressure in being a grandpa. I'm Pops. So they call me Pops.
Pops, is that what they call you?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's great. Good for you. I'm happy for you.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you.
Well, it's been a great conversation. Thanks for doing this. And I wish you the best, all the blessings, and Happy New Year.
Thanks, man. Blessings to you. Thanks for doing this. Thanks to MII, and thanks for all you listeners out there. Can I just give a challenge? Is that okay? If you don't like it, you can edit it out. If you don't like it. Yeah. Here's my perspective. What I'm so excited about. There's something like, you may have more up-to-date data, but there's over 5 billion people on social media globally, something like that. Isn't that right?
Yeah. What's a billion, give or take?
Yeah, a billion, give or take. Yeah. I think, there are 7,000 unreached people groups in the world. About half of them, we don't know of a missionary that's, engaging them permanently, long-term on the ground. I really think it's possible in our lifetimes, either my lifetime or the lifetime, if not my lifetime and your lifetime, certainly the lifetime of our kids or grandkids. I think it's possible we could see the gospel get to every tribe, tongue, and nation, and it will largely be due to digital efforts, social media, online reach. We have an incredible tool right in our hands, incredible opportunity like the Church of Jesus has never had before. So I'm super excited about it, and I wake up thinking about it and go to bed thinking about it. So I'm really thankful for all of that. I'm thankful for guys like you and David paving the way. So God bless you, man. Thanks for your leadership.
I'm thankful that we're having this conversation to just kind of explore, what do we do with that? if that's true, and I believe that, and I looked it up, it's 4.95 billion. Good job. I mean, you're like right up to date on your stats. But yeah, so if that's the case, what do we do? What don't we do? What do we focus on? That's, thanks for contributing to that conversation today. I really appreciate it.